The classroom challenge, 901,000 words. The lecture chamber hummed with low chatter and soft blinking lights. The ceiling above swirling with holographic stars that dimmed as the bell tone rang. A dozen species filled the tiered seat, scaled, furred, tentacled, and translucent, all draped in the smooth blue of the Confederation's Interplanetary Academy. Despite the Academy's prestige, few students paid attention to the entry of Instructor Virelli. She moved with calm grace, her shimmering crimson robes flowing behind her like liquid metal. Her long fronds hung still at either side of her high-set head, betraying her inner tension. Her species, the Velone, were known for their mental discipline, but even she struggled when teaching this particular course. Not because of the material but because of the subject. Settle in, students, Virelli said firmly, her multi-toned voice cutting through the murmurs. Today, we begin our introduction to a planet unlike any you've visited. You've heard the whispers, the warnings, the wonders. Now you'll learn the truth. A skeptical groan rippled from the back rows. A young Kaleri with bioluminescent cheek ridges raised a slender arm. Let me guess, Earth again, he said, leaning back with an exaggerated sigh. Isn't it? Just a jungle with rocks, wind, and some angry mammals. A few snickers followed. Virelli didn't flinch. She tapped her palm against the central data sphere. The lights dimmed, and a rotating image of Earth bloomed in mid-air, vibrant blue and green sphere wrapped in raging storms, with glowing infrared lines highlighting seismic activity, volcanism, and atmospheric chaos. No, Cadet Rillan, she said coolly. Earth is not just a jungle. Earth is a Category 5 Deathworld, the only one willingly inhabited by sentient beings. Those beings are humans. The laughter stopped. Even the Opteri, a race of massive six-limbed insectoids who rarely showed emotion, tilted their heads in silence. Virelli paced slowly. Most Deathworlds have been abandoned or sterilized. Earth is alive. It breathes storms. It bleeds magma. Its oceans are deep enough to swallow entire cities. Its creatures can hunt in silence, outrun your fastest flyers, and kill without mercy. Another student-an avian from the Saru species ruffled his feathers and clicked a claw against his desk. Then why do the humans live there? Why not terraform it, dominate it like everyone else does? Virelli paused, locking eyes with him. Because they can, and because Earth shaped them to be what they are, adaptably, resilient, cunning. Everything about their evolution was forged by hardship. You will not understand humans until you understand the crucible they crawled out of. She expanded the scenes flashed across the projection, hurricanes flattening cities, lightning slicing forests in two, beasts with teeth longer than forearms chasing humans across snow. They survived this, not just survived, thrived. When famine came, they planted. When disease struck, they healed. When war consumed them, they rebuilt. And when the stars opened, they stepped forward, not as beggars, but as equals. Whispers passed through the room. A few students leaned forward now. In this course, Virelli continued, you'll learn why Earth is both admired and feared. Why humans are not just members of the Confederation but its greatest anomaly. The floor beneath the students shifted slightly as the room adjusted gravity. Virelli watched as a few of the lighter species flinched. This chamber is now at 1 Earth gravity. You will remain in this simulation for the rest of today's session. Groans of protest echoed. My bones will compress. A long-bodied drone hissed. I can barely breathe, gasped an Opteri near the front. Virelli's fronds curled back slightly, a smile, in Valoran expression. Now imagine being born into it. She tapped the interface again. Now the screen showed a human bare arms, sweat glistening, running through uneven terrain with a pack on his back. Behind him thundered a creature 3 times his size, a terrestrial apex predator known as a grizzly bear. The human didn't scream. He sprinted, he jumped, he slid through mud, ducked under a branch, and fired a flare. The creature roared, and halted, blinking in confusion at the bright light. Humans do not have claws, they do not have venom. They lack hardened shells. What they do have is willpower. A young Trivan in the second row, with translucent skin and multiple sensory nodes across his scalp, raised a tendril. But surely that's an exaggeration. I mean, they use tools, yes, but if the world is so dangerous, why not just leave it behind and colonize elsewhere? Virelli's gaze narrowed. You misunderstand. Humans have colonized hundreds of worlds, but they always keep Earth. Earth is not a burden to them. It is their proving ground. Her voice softened. I once asked a human why they still lived on such a hostile planet. He told me, because it's home. Because if we left it, we might forget what it took to survive it. And when we forget that, we become something less. Silence followed. Virelli let the words settle, then turned to the final slide, a human child, maybe 6 years old, facing a large wolf in the snow. The wolf growled. The child didn't run. Instead, she slowly backed away, eyes locked, until the creature relented and disappeared into the trees. She survived, Virelli said softly, not because of strength, but because humans learn from birth how to assess danger, control fear, and make choices that mean life or death. The bell rang, ending the session. The students stood slowly, almost reluctantly. Virelli's voice followed them as they exited. Next session, we begin Earth survival scenarios. Bring your curiosity and leave your arrogance behind, because on Earth, it's not just about learning, it's about lasting. Gravity lessons and predator myths. The simulation room buzzed faintly with mechanical life as the next group of students entered. Most of them still sore from their last encounter with Earth-standard gravity. Several leaned against the walls, adjusting to the weight pulling on their frames. One of the taller Yulvons, with a long spine and semi-hollow bones, groaned aloud as he collapsed onto a padded bench. "This is absurd," he muttered, flicking the sweat from his brow with an elongated finger. "No one can live like this." From the center of the room, Instructor Virelli raised a brow front but said nothing. Instead, she waited. A few more stragglers trickled in, looking just as exhausted. Once the door hissed shut behind them, she activated the holosphere once more. The room dimmed, the floor beneath them hardening to mimic rocky terrain. "Welcome back," she said. "I trust you've had time to reflect on your first taste of Earth's natural gravity. Today, we discuss what may be even more lethal than the world itself, its ecosystem." A projection shimmered into existence above them, a model of Earth's food chain, stretching from microorganisms to apex predators. Several students leaned in, noting the density of predatory species alone. Over 70% of Earth's large land animals, Virelli began, are either carnivorous or omnivorous. Many of them are not only aggressive but territorial, intelligent, and equipped with natural weapons far beyond what most of you have ever encountered. She spun the projection with a gesture, zooming in on a lithe feline with sharp golden eyes. "This is a leopard. It is capable of lifting prey 3 times its body weight into trees. It hunts silently." Humans lived alongside these for thousands of years without cages. The Kaleri who had mocked Earth in the previous session scoffed. "But surely they don't fight these things. They must avoid them." Virelli flicked the projection again. A video appeared, grainy, old Earth footage. It showed a man, no older than 30, warding off a mountain lion with nothing but his arms raised, his voice calm but firm. The predator hesitated, then slunk away. "They don't always fight," she said, voice cool, "but they never cower." The room was quiet. The Optary students, always proud of their physical strength, now looked uneasy. One of them, massive and beetle-like, buzzed nervously. "But how? They have no armor, no venom, no regenerative capability." "Correct," Virelli said, "but they possess adaptability, and perhaps more critically ingenuity." She waved her hand again, and new scenes appeared. A human wrapping sharp stone into branches to create spears. Another igniting a ring of fire to ward off wolves. Children learning to swim in icy waters. Soldiers dragging injured comrades through mud and hail while under fire. They do not wait for safety. They create it, Virelli said. A flickering image showed a human campsite in the Arctic tundra. Nearby, a massive polar bear approached. The humans did not scream. They did not scatter. One picked up a flare gun and calmly fired into the sky. The bear stopped, then turned away. The room shifted again, slightly colder, simulating the tundra's chill. Students shivered as their garments auto-adjusted. "But how do they know what to do?" asked a young Celian female, her scales flashing pale green in nervous pulses. "How do they survive instinctively against such odds?" Virelli stepped forward, her voice now tinged with a note of reverence. "Because they pass down fear like it's tradition. They raise their young with stories, not just legends, but warnings. They teach danger, they train for it, and they turn it into sport." More murmurs spread through the room. "Sport," repeated the Trivan again. "You mean they play with death?" Virelli changed the projection once more. A slideshow began, skydivers leaping from cliffs, humans swimming beside sharks, others climbing frozen mountains with nothing but hooks and rope. Another slideshow to humans in a ring, fists, bloodied eyes focused. "Yes," Virelli said, "they do not just survive chaos, they celebrate it." A pause lingered before she continued. "But it is not the predators that concern me most. It is their choice to live beside them. They are the apex predators of their planet. Nothing can challenge them except each other. And still, they choose to let the old threats live. Why?" She looked at the class. A A small German child raised his delicate hand, because if they destroy every threat, they become weak. Varelli smiled softly. Yes, in human culture, struggle is not a curse, it is a crucible. They believe that through danger, they become more. She gestured again, and the projection displayed a young human girl, maybe 9 years old, holding the leash of a large, sharp-fanged wolf dog. She was laughing, her other hand holding a stick covered in frost. The room was still, only humans. Varelli whispered, would tame monsters to feel alive. Then she turned off the projector. For your next simulation, she said, gesturing toward the far end of the room, you'll enter the Earth habitat trial. You'll be dropped into a recreated Earth biome, either forest, tundra, desert, or jungle. You'll be given basic tools and expected to survive for 6 Earth hours. Monitor drones will observe. Some students visibly paled, others straightened, determined. Varelli raised a final point. There will be no real predators, but remember, discomfort is part of the lesson. If you wish to study humanity, you must first walk as one. She opened the doors to the next chamber. Enter, and may your instincts serve you. The Earth habitat trial. The steel blue doors slid open with a pressurized hiss, revealing a narrow corridor filled with changing lights and shifting air pressures. Each alien student stepped forward hesitantly, their nerves hidden poorly behind determined expressions. They knew this wasn't just another simulation, it was a test of resilience, of instinct, of understanding Earth's terrifying embrace. Instructor Varelli stood beside the entrance console, arms crossed over her long ceremonial tunic. Her fronds, still her voice echoed into the hall. You will enter individually. The environment will be randomized: forest, tundra, desert, or jungle. You have been given one satchel with native Earth survival tools, a flint striker, water ration, a basic compass, a small steel blade, and a thermal wrap. Nothing more. No weapons, no AI assistance. 6 Earth hours. If you fail, you'll be your score will reflect it. The silence between students tightened. The first to step forward was Rudon, the young optary who had once mocked Earth's gravity and openly scoffed at humans. His hardened exoskeleton flexed with each step, but his confident air had faded. As the door closed behind him, a hum of energy sealed the simulation pod. Inside, a dense tropical biome blinked into being. Humidity pressed down like a second skin. Thick vines hung from massive trees, buzzing with life. The air was loud, birds, rustling leaves, and something heavy moving in the undergrowth. Rovon's breathing quickened. It was simulated, yes, but too real. The ground squelched under his clawed feet. The leaves dripped with water that wasn't water, and the sky above was filtered but distant. He moved cautiously, every alien instinct screaming to retreat. He pulled the blade from his belt and cut. Through a low branch, the bark oozed red sap. Behind him, something growled. He turned sharply, but there was nothing. The simulation was sensory reach. It used Earth audio recordings and climate feedback to emulate real encounters, something that humans had designed themselves for xenological training. Within an hour, Reuven was soaked, exhausted, and desperate. He tried climbing a tree for higher ground, only to fall and twist his rear limb on the descent. When the monitoring drones found him curled under a broad-leafed plant, his satchel missing and his pride shattered, he refused to make eye contact. Next few students entered in silence. One by one, they met Earth's extremes. Nella of the Jin tribe was dropped into tundra flat, lands covered in biting snow and shrieking winds. She wrapped her thermal cloth around herself tightly, following the weak compass signal toward a designated beacon. Her race had always shied from the cold. Her extremities stiffened within minutes. At the 2-hour mark, she constructed a crude shelter from sticks and ice, a tactic copied from a human training log she had studied the night before. When the retrieval drones located her, she was trembling and frostbitten but alive, and calmed. Her post-sim report simply read, "Humans, choose this. Voluntarily. Unbelievable." Others were not so fortunate. Tavix, a towering reptilian student of the Karlak species, found himself in a simulated desert, arid, endless, and sweltering. His biology was suited for moisture-heavy environments. The sun simulation blazed at 45 degrees Celsius. He drank all his water within the first 30 minutes. The heat distorted his vision, and hallucinations crept in. At the 4th hour, he dug a pit to escape the worst of the solar burn. By hour 5, his retrieval beacon activated automatically due to rising vitals, his core temperature nearing critical levels. Instructor Varelli monitored all of this from the control room, but one case captured her attention more than any. Quiet, observant student of the LX, a bioluminescent species known for emotional reading and memory recall. She was not physically strong, not battle-trained, but she had studied humans obsessively. She even carried their quotes, scribbled in multiple languages, on the inside of her wrist wraps. Yellori's simulation dropped her into temperate forest. The canopy overhead was dense, but the climate was moderate. Her alien eyes adjusted easily to the shadows. She moved with care, noting moss patterns, animal sounds, and wind shifts. When she came across a downed tree, she didn't step over it. She stepped around it. When her water ran low, she used her compass to follow a downward slope, recalling a human survival manual that said water always runs downhill. At the third hour, she constructed a rudimentary lean-to using branches and leaves, and lined the edges with sharp sticks. She hadn't seen a single predator, but she had prepared for one. During debrief, Varelli asked her, "Why were you so calm?" Yellori answered, "Because humans survive this. With less, they have no claws, no wings, no armor, and they still climb mountains, cross oceans, and live where other species would never dare build homes. I just asked myself, what would a human do?" Varelli nodded slowly. "And if something had attacked," Yellori smiled faintly, "then I would hope to die well, because to understand them, I must understand their fear and their courage." After all, students had returned, most limping or shivering. Varelli stood before them. "You now know," she said softly, "why Earth is feared. Not because it kills, but because it demands you earn every breath." The room was quiet. The students, still processing their experiences, had shifted. There were fewer jokes now, less pride, more thoughtfulness, and Varelli noticed more curiosity. "But this was only simulation," she added. "Soon some of you will go to Earth, and there, the danger will not wait for you to adjust." She turned to power down the simulation system. Humans were forged by a world that doesn't care whether they survive, but somehow they made it love them. You will have to do the same. Touching the Earth's 2 weeks passed. The alien students had returned to their regular classes aboard the orbital academy, orbiting the vibrant blue-green world below. But things had changed since the Earth habitat trial. Conversations had grown quieter. The cafeteria, once buzzing with arrogant debates, now murmured with hushed respect. Earth had left its Markivin, if only in simulation. But the real test was just beginning. For the first time in the Academy's history, a student field visit to Earth had been approved, not as a diplomatic mission, but as a cultural immersion experiment. The Cinderella Confederation had always kept its distance from Earth's soil, too dangerous, too chaotic. But human diplomats had pushed hard. "Let them see us," they said. "Let them walk where we walk, then they'll understand." And so, 20 students were chosen. No guards, no weapons, only a single human liaison per team. The Confederation thought it madness. Varelli thought it brilliant. The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere with a trembling grace, clouds peeling away to reveal a lush wilderness, thick forests, craggy hills, and winding rivers. Their destination was an uncolonized Earth preserve in northern Cascadia. No cities, no buildings, no vehicles, just one ground station outfitted for temporary habitation. As the shuttle doors opened, a wave of scents and sounds overwhelmed the students. Real air, humid, wild, and full of invisible life. Birds shrieked in the trees. Distant howls echoed from unseen hills. The ground squelched beneath unfamiliar feet. Gravity pressed down with real weight. Nothing here was simulated. The Larai was the first to step onto the soil. She knelt, her luminous fingertips brushing the moss. "It's alive. Everything is alive here," she whispered. Their human guide, a tall, soft-spoken man named Jesse Matson, nodded. "Earth doesn't make it easy," he said, "but it makes it worth it." Reuven, who had limped through his simulated jungle trial, scoffed under his breath. "It smells unclean." Jesse chuckled. "That's nature, my friend. It doesn't come in sterile packets." They set up camp together. The students fumbled with old-school tools, metal stakes, canvas shelters, fire pits. Jesse helped where needed, but never interfered. "Learn by doing," he'd say, even when a student nearly chopped their own foot with an axe or spilled rations into a stream. On the third day, things changed. That morning, Yellori woke to find the wind wrong. The forest was quieter. No birdsong. The trees rustled, but there was no breeze. Jesse noticed too. He crouched low, pressing his palm against the soil. "Something's nearby," he murmured. Before anyone could ask, a roar shattered the silence. A grizzly bear 3 meters tall, thick with muscle, and hunger charged from the underbrush straight into the outer perimeter. The student screamed. Reuven reached for a weapon that wasn't there. Nella froze, her breath gone. Tavix ran blindly into a tree. but Jesse stood his ground. He raised his arms wide and roared back. The bear skidded, confused by the noise and the scent of adrenaline. Jesse clapped his hands and threw a rock not at the bear but near its flank. The sound redirected it just enough for it to veer away, crashing back into the trees. Silence returned like a falling sheet of ice. Jesse turned, face pale, heart racing. "You okay?" he asked, eyes sweeping the stunned group. Nobody answered. They couldn't. They had just met Earth's indifference, real and sudden. That night, they sat around the fire in silence. Flames danced in Jesse's eyes as he spoke. "You think the bear was the danger," he said, "but the danger is forgetting. That it can come every minute you forget where you are. Earth reminds you, and it doesn't care who you are, or where you're from." The students nodded slowly, absorbing his words. "Then why live here?" Tavix asked softly. "Why not move to safer planets? Simpler ones?" Jesse poked the fire with a stick. Sparks rose like stars. "Because Earth makes you earn every comfort. You build a house, the wind tests it. You grow food, the pests try to eat it first. You raise kids, the world throws storms and predators and gravity at them, but through all of it we stay. Because surviving here makes us better, sharper, closer. It's not about defeating Earth, it's about dancing with it." Yalari leaned forward, her eyes wide. "It shapes you, doesn't it? The planet shapes the people." Jesse nodded. "Exactly. That's what makes humans the way we are." He tossed another log into the fire. "We didn't just adapt to survive Earth," he continued. "We adapted each other, built tribes, families, stories. Because Earth doesn't give mercy, but it gives meaning." At night they didn't speak much, but for the first time since landing, the alien students looked up at the stars and didn't think of themselves as above the world below. They were visitors, and Earth was watching. The creditors pieced the forest was still the next morning. Mist rolled through the trees like ancient breath. The campfire from the night before had long since died, leaving behind only the scent of ash and memory. The students emerged from their shelters one by one, subdued and alert. There was no more joking, no more swagger. Earth had made itself known. Jesse stood near the edge of the camp, facing the forest as if listening to a language only he could understand. "Today," he said without turning, "we're going deeper." A few students hesitated. Ruvon's claws twitched anxiously. Tavix clutched a translator tablet like a shield, but nobody backed away. They all followed as Jesse led them on a narrow trail carved into the underbrush. No drones, no hoverpad, just dirt, roots, and the occasional claw mark embedded in tree bark. "Why here?" Yalari asked quietly as they walked. "Why bring us to the wildest part of your planet?" Jesse glanced over his shoulder, his boots crunching on gravel. "Because he wanted to understand Earth. And Earth isn't glass towers or neon skylines. It's this." Hours passed. They crossed a shallow stream, scrambled over fallen logs, and ducked beneath hanging moss that glittered with dew. With every step they learned how to step lightly, how to listen before speaking, how to see without staring. Jesse was teaching without saying a word, and then they saw it. In a clearing up ahead stood a pack of wolves, 5 of them, lean and silent, watching the group with glowing eyes. The students froze. The wolves didn't move. Jesse raised a hand. "Don't run," he said calmly. "They're just curious." Reuven hissed softly, his spines raising. "They're predators." Jesse nodded. "So are we." No one moved for nearly a minute, and then, as if bored, the wolves turned and slipped away into the brush, silent as shadows. The students exhaled as one. That, Jesse said, voice low and reverent, "is what peace looks like here. It's not safety, it's mutual understanding." Back at the camp, the students gathered around the central log to debrief, but something had shifted in them. They didn't talk about danger, they talked about balance. Tavix mentioned the birds that sang only at dusk. Nella had noticed how plants turned toward the light. Yalari had counted 9 kinds of moss in 1 square meter of stone. Jesse leaned back against a tree, arms crossed. "You came here thinking Earth was hostile, violent, a Deathworld, but that's only part of the truth. Yes, Earth can kill you, but it also teaches you, it rewards patience, punishes arrogance." He picked up a handful of soil, letting it crumble through his fingers. "And it remembers." Nella tilted her head. "What do you mean? You think Earth forgets the weight of footprints?" Jesse asked. "You think it doesn't carry the memory of every war, every storm, every birth? Earth is old, older than us. It's been here long before humanity, and it'll be here long after. But we're just the latest chapter in its story," Reuven muttered. "Then why do humans act like they own it?" Jesse smiled. "We don't. Not really. We like to pretend we're in charge. But Earth humbles us. A virus, A storm. A fault line shift and we remember who's boss. He paused. But Earth allows us to stay. Because, unlike many species, we learn, we respect, we fight. Yes, but we also build, protect, grow, and when the Earth pushes back, we don't abandon it, we adapt. That night, the students huddled in smaller circles. They didn't need Jesse's guidance anymore. They were starting to understand the rhythm of the wild. Yellowry watched the stars as she spoke softly to herself. Earth doesn't kill to kill. It kills to teach. Somewhere nearby, an owl called out a haunting sound, strange and beautiful. For the first time since arriving, no one jumped at the noise. In a world that didn't offer comfort, they had begun to find calm. Not because Earth was any less dangerous, but because they were becoming more aware, more alive. Jesse watched them quietly from a distance, a small smile on his face. He'd seen it before. The Earth changes you, not instantly, not softly, but fully. And once it does, you never see the galaxy the same way again. Lessons beneath the skin. Rain began to fall by morning, not a storm, but the kind of steady bone-deep drizzle that soaked everything in a matter of minutes. The alien students huddled under improvised coverings. Their once pristine uniforms clung to them now, muddied and damp, but no one complained. Earth, in its quiet way, was still teaching. Jesse stoked the morning fire, steam rising from his shoulders. He moved slowly, deliberately. There was no rush in him, only rhythm. The flames caught, licking upward into the mist. "You're wet," Nella observed, wrapping a thermal cloak around her shoulders. "Yeah," Jesse said, glancing up, and alive Tavix tilted his head. "You don't fight the weather." Jesse shook his head. "We endure it, and if we're smart, we learn from it." That day they didn't hike. They sat in a clearing while rain whispered through the trees. Jesse taught them how to build shelters from branches and cord, how to find edible plants, how to tell if an animal had passed recently by scent tracks, disturbed moss. It wasn't in their books, it was in the soil. Technology isn't the only way forward, Jesse explained. Sometimes, survival means remembering what your ancestors knew. Yellowry frowned. "But your species is known for machines, for conquering the void. Why cling to these primitive methods?" Jesse looked up, because this is where it started. Every skyscraper, every starship, it began with a stick and a stone. And when the tech fails, this is what remains. The students fell quiet. For all their simulations and planetary dossiers, none of them had truly felt the weight of survival. Until now. Then came the scream. It sliced through the trees like a razor. High, desperate, Jesse was on his feet instantly. "Stay here." But Reuven was already running. So was Tavix. Jesse cursed and followed, mud flinging up behind him. They cut through the trees, down a steep embankment, and into a gorge where the ground opened like a wound. At the bottom lay a young Jenna male, delicate by nature, his mask cracked, his leg twisted at an unnatural angle. He'd wandered off to collect spores. Alone. Jesse skidded to a stop beside him. The air was thick with the smell of blood and wet rock. "Don't move," Jesse said calmly, kneeling beside him. "It's dislocated." Behind him, Reuven growled, "We need a medbot." "No time." Jesse snapped a small branch, peeled it, and pulled cloth from his own belt. "He's going into shock." Tavix held his arms. The djinn whimpered through his mask, eyes wide with terror. Jesse gripped the leg. "This will hurt," he said. Then he pulled. There was a wet pop, a gasp, then silence. Reuven looked stunned. Tavix stared at Jesse as though seeing him for the first time. "Where did you learn that?" he asked. Jesse didn't look up. "My brother broke his leg on a mountainside when I was 15. No signal, no help, just me and instinct." He bound the djinn's leg tightly. "Earth teaches you, brutally, sometimes. But if you survive, you carry the lesson forever." They carried the djinn back in silence. At camp, the others gathered around, quietly assisting. No mockery, no doubt, just unity. Survival had forged something new among them, kind of trust no classroom could create. That evening, around the fire, Jesse finally spoke. "Now you understand why we call it a death." Yellowry looked at the flames. "Because it tries to kill you." "No," Jesse said softly. "Because it's alive, and it doesn't care about your comfort, your titles, or your heritage. Earth challenges everything you think you know. It strips away the illusions. What's left is real." He turned his gaze to the students, firelight dancing in his eyes. "You came here thinking you were the most advanced species in the galaxy. But Earth doesn't care how many degrees you have, or what ships you've built. Out here, you're just another animal trying to live through the night." There was a long pause, then Reuven spoke, his voice hushed. "But humans, you survive." Jesse nodded. "Because we respect the danger, we listen to it. and sometimes, we become it. The fire cracked between them. Sparks floated up like stars. In that moment, the alien students didn't feel superior. They felt honored that Earth had spared them, that Jesse had guided them, and that maybe, just maybe, they were beginning to understand. They were no longer visitors to a death world. They were students of it. And Earth, relentless, beautiful, deadly Earth was their greatest teacher. The mark Earth leaves behind the shuttle hummed softly as it docked with the orbital station. Beyond the transparent hull, Earth glowed in the distance, no longer just a swirling orb of blue and green, but something sacred, something revered. The alien students sat silently in their seats. No jokes now, no careless words. Their gear was worn, their uniforms smudged, but their eyes, they were different, sharper, older, as if Earth had reached into each of them and carved something permanent beneath the surface. Miss Viren waited. At the docking bay, the Zamra instructor stood tall, arms folded, head fronds relaxed, but her gaze was piercing. "You survived," she said as they stepped through the hatch. No one answered, not right away. Jesse stepped off last, boots clanging, against the station's clean floor. He gave a nod, then turned to the others. "Go on," he said. "You earned your return." The students moved slowly past Miss Viren, one by one. Changed that it was Yalare who finally broke the silence. "We were wrong about humans," she said quietly. Miss Viren's brow lifted. "How so? They're not just survivors. They're cultivators of danger. They don't run from death, they grow around it." Miss Viren glanced toward Earth. "I told you it was a death world, but you didn't tell us it could teach," Tavix added, "or forgive, or humble." Inside the debriefing hall, the students sat again, this time not in rows, not by species, but together, a single unit. Their instructor, High Scholar Marlin of the Opticin, peered down through his thin glasses and adjusted his datapad. "We reviewed your vitals, several near-deaths, injuries, environmental trauma, but also cohesion, adaptation, faster than recovery, unexpected, given your background." Jesse stood at the back, arms folded, watching. Marlin cleared his throat. "Would anyone like to summarize your experience?" Silence. Then the Jinn student who had been injured spoke. "I thought strength came from genetics, from evolution, from the stars. But it's not that it's choice. Repeated every hour. Earth taught me that." Another voice followed. "I believed I could understand any planet through data, but I didn't understand pain until I bled. I didn't understand respect until I had to earn it from a storm. And Reuven said slowly, "I thought I was a warrior, but I had never faced nature without armor. I had never stood beside a human while the world tried to kill us both, and saw him smile through it." The room fell silent again. Then, Marlin looked up. "You've been marked." The students exchanged glances. "Not physically," Marlin continued, "but in a way we can't erase. You now carry the burden of truth. Earth isn't just dangerous, it's transformative, and humans are its expression." He looked to Jesse. "Would you agree?" Jesse met his gaze. "They learned to respect Earth. That's enough. But for some, it wasn't. Single quotes. 2 weeks passed. Graduation came. Many returned to their home worlds with new caution and new reverence. But some stayed. Tavix enlisted in the Earth Exchange Corps. Reuven signed up to train with human special forces. Even the Jinn, soft-spoken and fragile, applied to study Earth's ecosystems and predator-prey structures, and yet, she stayed on Earth. She stood now beneath the redwoods, breathing in the deep forest-scented air, her feet grounded in damp moss. Jesse was beside her, staring into the horizon where distant peaks scraped the clouds. "You know," she said, "I used to think humans were irrational, reckless. Still do." Jesse asked. "No," she said. "Now I think you're right." "About what?" "About the world teaching you. About earning your place in it. About choosing fear, walking through it anyway." Jesse gave her a sideways glance. "Most of us just do what we can, and that," Yalari whispered, "is what makes you dangerous." Birds cried overhead. Somewhere in the trees, something heavy moved through the brush. But neither of them flinched. They just listened, because they weren't just standing on Earth anymore. They were part of it.